What's up, y'all? How everybody doing? Pie, y'all. I'm gonna wait till a couple of people. Wait till a couple of people get in here. So let me go on and shoot that disclaimer out there. For use, education purpose use only. All rights, image, and music clip belong to their prospective owner, and we do not claim ownership. All right, y'all. I'm glad last night that y'all can get a little glimpse of you know, about the 13 royal bloodlines, and we finna get over that, right? You know what I'm saying? We finna let me go to my podcast channel before I break this down. All right. If you watched my live last night, it was just breaking down the real family, the real 13 royal bloodline that basically controlling the whole world through a branch of family that they can put on camera. But the real people, they don't want camera action. No. They don't want to be seen on no camera. They really don't want nobody to know nothing about their family. Like they don't exist. All right. So if you watch my live, right, this where I'm finna go with this. Man, them folk rewrote that Bible. They rewrote it, right? This what they did. They rewrote it. And I hope the true God that created all of us, I hope he touching me right now because I see it. I mean, I see the visual. When I mean I see the visual, meaning I peep game now. This is like when you, this is like if you in a relationship, you peep game. Oh man, she cheating on me. He cheating on me. You see what I'm saying? If you in a relationship, you're gonna peep both of you. Yeah, she cheating on me, and you're gonna be like, yeah, he cheating on me. So, so look, man, I bet you any kind of money, Jesus may be so real. Cause whatever he said, boy, he done struck a nerve in the 13 bloodline family for them folk were like, wait a minute, we got to get him out of here. All right. For a prime example, check this out, y'all. I'm gonna go to my big screen. This is what my big screen said, because I want to know the real true birth of Jesus, right? I want to know the real true birth of Jesus. They said Jesus was born in the first century. This what uh internet said, AI. Jesus also known as a Jesus Christ, a Jesus of Nazareth, was a first century Jewish preacher and a religious leader. So you mean to tell me that means he was born in the year one? That's the first century. Cause keep this in mind, we living in the 20th century. I investigated the timestamp, right? But look, watch this, y'all. Check this out. I'm finna go and hit my back button. Cause I honestly believe that the way I be thinking and be doing some research, I know these people got microphones and they can hear my outbursts and be like, well, let me go back to this and that and do a little research, right? So if I hit my back button, we still gonna talk about the first century. All right. I hit my back button. Look, watch this. They said this historical content, right? This is historical. Jesus' narrative lived in the first century. You see that? Hold on, watch this. I'm gonna hit my back button again. Jesus, he lived in the first century during the time of the Romans occupation in Judah. Whoa, that's finna give you a real timestamp, cause this in the first century when the Roman was ruling. The government, you know what I'm talking about? If you look at this, boy, watch her. If I hit my back button again, you see where it went to? It went to the bloodline. That's the last when I put this in, I'm finna hit my forward button, right? Cause that's when I hit my back button, that's the last search I did. So when I was like, let me go back to the Bundy bloodline and let me type Jesus in. This when I type Jesus in, cause I already typed his name in so many times. Like I made sure he was born in the first century. So this was recently. When I type Jesus' name in, I'm finna hit my forward button. Guess what it's finna do? Jesus was not born in the first century. I said, what? I said, hold on, let me I gotta start with screen recording my researchers, cause they will flip the script. They will flip the script on you, bro. It's about your mind thinking. You see what I'm saying? So now they look, now you saying, oh, Jesus was not born in the first century AD. Most likely he was born around in the first century between 6 and 4 BC. Mm-hmm. Watch this. So look, let me do it like this here. Let me go to my podcast, right, and show y'all this. Oh, what's going on? Let me just do it like this. What year Moses was born?
According to Wikipedia, according to the book of Exodus, Moses was born in a period when his people, the Israelites, who were an enslaved minority, were increasing in population.
Check this out. Now y'all see that? That's the 13th century going on the 14th century. But keep this in mind, right? They want y'all to believe this was 1300 before Christ. What if this was after Christ? Ooh, then you have a big problem. Cause guess what? When you go back to Moses and the Israelites, when they was enslaved and all that, look who was the pharaohs at that time. You ain't finna believe this. Oh yeah, you believe this. So if I'm telling you, check this out. This what I'm finna tell everybody, bro. You ain't got to believe me. Do your research and based off the timeline. If you go to your Bible in the New Testament right here, look, the New Testament. This is a great religion, Old Testament, from the King James Version, right? If you go to Matthew, watch this. somewhere does this gospel say who wrote it? Thought the title even look. Watch this, y'all. It was in the 2nd century. Ooh, what you mean? So this got to be like 200 years after Jesus died. So if you put the New Testament before the Old Testament, boy, look how war broke out. Boy, look how the war broke out, and they try to make everybody between religions. My God is a jealous God. Look, they said these writings is in the 2nd century. Go to the 2nd century. You can Google this stuff. So let's go to Matthew 1. Right? Now y'all see this stuff? So that's why everything, when they got through killing Jesus, they knew the prophecy. They knew he was coming all along. So when they assassinated, when they crucified him and killed him, right? Look at it like this here. They wrote the Bible after Jesus and said Jesus was here to fulfill, Jesus supposed to fulfill all the prophecy, but he already did. And then when they killed him, boy, that's when they had to scatter out on the land. Look. So I read all of this stuff. So look, if you go back to Matthew, this is going to tell you about the birth of Jesus. They're going to tell you about, you know what I'm saying? It's basically about Jesus. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, basically about Jesus. The Old Testament is about Jesus' crucifixion, being reborn, you know what I'm saying? Come down here to save us for our sins from these devils, and they killed him, right? So when he was preaching, they took his teachings, and came with a Bible. Hold on. Let me go back. Cause check this out. If you start out with with the New Testament first, think about why they always said Jesus was already here before the creation. He was the Son of God, right? He was already here. That's what the pastor was preaching in the church. Jesus was already here. He had to come through a virgin. You know what I'm talking about? So now look, if you look at the birth of Jesus, look how this finna look like now. Boom, they talking about birth of Jesus. Then when you get to the book of Acts, look, when you get to the book of Acts, that's when they finna crucify him. Look. The 5th book. Now you got the book of Acts. Think about why it's the book of Acts. Then look, you even got the book of Romans. Hold on. And if you got the book of Romans, check this out. When they killed Jesus, took his teaching to Rome, then they wrote all of these scriptures and sent it to the churches. The Philistine church, the Ephesian churches, the Galilee, the Thessalonian church. These is all churches. These is all churches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 churches. 6 churches is supposed to be 7, and we'll get to the the seventh church. But now, since when look, they gave you the birth of Jesus. When it come to Acts, they killed them, and then look how they start writing. Jesus was heard to feel the word of God and all this, and it's already been fulfilled, right? You can read all this in the Timothy, you know what I'm saying, Hebrew, and then you got James. Whoa. And you got Peter, John, you know what I'm saying, and all that. And keep this in mind, these the same people that walk with Jesus. John, you know what I'm saying, James. These is all the same people, right? That wrote this here. So all of this gonna be in the same time frame. Yep. So look, then you go to Revelation. So this is what I'm saying. God, when it comes to the Bible, start with Matthew. Read all these books, and once you hit Revelations, then start with the creation. Ooh wee. So this is what the white man did. The 13th Illuminati. When they gave you Jesus' birth, they told you when they killed them. Boom. Once they killed them, you know what I'm saying? Guess who took control? The Romans. Once the Romans took control, they started writing letters. Now this is gonna be centuries and centuries. Right? So look, all of this gonna be after when Jesus died. They knew they fucked up when they killed him. But guess what? They was like, man, Jesus heard, feel the law, you know what I'm saying? They trying to feel all the, they witnesses that this man done feel all the prophecies. That's why all of them believe he coming back again. Hold on. Go to her, all of this in the same time period. Then once you get a Revelation, it tells you about the horses. They told you about the beasts. Ain't them the same Illuminati people that we was talking about in our recent live videos? Boy, because once you go to Revelation, right, let's go to Revelation. Check this out. The book of Revelation revealed things that might otherwise remain unknown. The revelation came from God and the rise of Christ. Whoa. So that means when the revelation, that's when they said Christ rise. Ooh-wee. So watch this. Look what happened after the fact in Revelation. Look what happened after when Jesus died. It was a revelation. For real. We weren't there to witness it, but they witnessed it. That what made them believe. Shit. You gotta preach Jesus' name now, but you gotta change his name though. You know what I'm talking about? So, what I'm basically saying, this story was way before Adam and Eve. I know that sounds strange. I know that finna sound strange. But if you look at the New Testament before Adam and Eve, and the reason why I said this, because once I figured out the time frame, because this ain't even easy to do. This shit is very hard. You got to really scratch your head and look into some shit. So basically, what it looked like that they know Jesus was coming. So you get Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they give you his birth. They tell you how they were looking for him when he was a child. And everybody know he was coming. But he didn't came from the bloodline. He didn't come from the bloodline of King David, Solomon, and the creation that we about to read in the Genesis. Mm-hmm. So look, this what happened after Jesus. This what happened after Jesus, y'all. Let's go to Revelation 1. And tell me, do this hit different? Do this hit different after Jesus died? Look, first verse in Revelation, and let's read it.
The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to shew unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. Two who bear record of the word of God, and of the testimony of Jesus Christ, and of all things that he saw. Three blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. For John to the 7 churches which are in Asia, grace be unto you, and peace, from him which is, and which was, and which is to come, and from the 7 spirits which are before his throne.
So look at it like this here. When they killed him, that's when they realized, man, they was witnesses. They had to be witnesses for they to change their tune. How you went in up to killing Jesus, crucify him, and turn around and praise him? You don't think that's kind of strange? You kill him. You ask him, is you God? Jesus never said he was God. Hold on.
Throne. 5, and from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness, and the first begotten of the dead, and the prince of the kings of the earth. Unto him that loved us, and washed us from our sins in his own blood. 6, and hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and.
So, I don't mean to stop it and pausing, but I hope I say this right, because I don't want nobody to get defended on their religion. Keep this in mind. I'm a Christian right today. I'm still a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I believe in the devil, demons, spirits. Because, you know what I'm saying? If it ain't no devil, it ain't going to be no, know what I'm saying, no Jesus. You know what I'm saying? If you believe it ain't no devil, it ain't going to be no angel. You see what I'm saying? It ain't going to be. So, if you believe in Jesus, you got to believe in the devil. If you believe in God, you got to believe everything that you see in this world. You just cannot let Satan play a flute or play a harp and fuck with your conscience and make you forget about all of this shit. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the Bible like this. And when they killed Jesus, once they killed Jesus, right? They knew he was the one. But what's fucked up about it, they put Satan as the form of Jesus. After when they crucified him, it's finna sound super strange. It won't sound strange if you listen to the whole audio. Do this sound like when they crucified Jesus and they witnesses that he was the real deal? So they start writing letters to different churches, 7 churches to be exact, right? 7 churches to be exact. Guess where they got their teachers from? Jesus. Jesus changed the game in the whole religions. Cause you want to know what they start doing in the book of Genesis? Start worshiping idols. That's why they start building the tower to go back up there where Jesus came from. You see what I'm saying? Hold on. Do this. If you look at the revelation of Jesus, look how this sound like.
And ever. Amen. 7 Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen. 8 I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. 9 1 John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, and in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ.
And keep this in mind. Jesus never walked with John. They want y'all to believe John baptized Jesus. Bro, it's finna be a whole lot of trickery when it come to this shit. It's finna be a whole lot of trickery. Cause, man, let me just play this, John. This shit's so deep.
Christ was in the isle that is called Patmos for the word of God and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. 10 I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice, as of a trumpet. 11 saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou sayest, write in a book, and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia.
Now this the devil. You ain't got to believe me when I say this the devil now. Man. Boy, this the devil here. He calling Jesus Lord. And he said he is the Alpha and Omega. Right? Listen to this shit.
Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. 12 And I turned to see the voice that spake with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. 13 And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks one like unto the Son of Man. Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. 14 His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire.
Now, check this out. Man, you think Jesus' hair gonna be white as wool and white as snow, his eyes gonna be as flaming fire? Nope. He died at the age of 33, let them tell it. Ain't nobody got white hair at 33 years old. Right? Think about centuries, years later. That's why they say, yeah, you know it. He had hair like wool. It's white as snow, and his eyes was as flame as fire, and his feet was like brass. And if they was burned in a furnace, and his voice sound like many waters. Hold on. Check this out.
Fire. 15 And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. 16 And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. 17 And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. 18 I am he that liveth, and was dead. And, behold, I am alive for evermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death.
So, now, you got the keys to heaven, to hell and death. Look at the trickery of the Bible, right? Man, when I tell you, bruh, that if you love God and if you love Jesus, read that Bible again. It's finna make it more interesting for you. Man, you look, I swear to God, you'll be like, damn, I see what Trey Gang's saying. I'm reading this shit. And then you can Google this shit, because guess what? The white man always record his history when they go to battle. When they go to battle, right? This how they so dumb when they recorded their history. Look. Watch this. The Old Testament.
According to Wikipedia, the Old Testament is the first division of the Christian biblical canon, which is based primarily upon the 24 books of the Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, a collection of ancient religious Hebrew and occasionally Aramaic writings by the Israelites.
What? Writings by the Israelites? Whoa! Now think about this when I went live and showed you the 13 royal bloodlines. So when you look at the Old Testament, look at the New Testament like this here. The New Testament is the Old Testament. The New Testament, look, if you go and read the New Testament, they killed Jesus. Bam, bam, bam. When they killed Jesus, they saw something that made them believe like, man, this man must be the Son of God. And it spooked them, but they was so evil because they was expecting him the whole time. They just needed to see it like, yeah, he ain't lying. We got to get rid of him. So what they did, once they got rid of him, that's where you finna get the Old Testament, a new creation. Now this finna start it off with Noah, because they finna tell you God destroyed the world. Guess what God destroyed? The same fucking area that Jesus crucified and turned into a desert. Shit. Into a desert, bruh. You can see the evidence on Google Maps. Let me show y'all this on Google Maps. Hold on. Hold up. I ain't even go to... Yeah, hold on. My bad, y'all. I ain't even show my screen yet. Let me show my screen right quick. Pull all this stuff up. Now look. You can actually see the evidence. Where Jesus supposed to been crucified at? In Jerusalem. There was a known fact. Now if you look why all of this will be up underwater, cause when I did some research, I was coming to find out that, hey, not only it was just African here, but you had the Romans here. And the Romans had control of Egypt. Look, they had control of Egypt, Iraq, all of this. Even Libya, right up in here, because this is where Spain come in at. So check this out. When you think about Spain, think about the wars coming from Spain to Africa. Man, you can Google this, be like, what was going on when the pyramid was built? You're going to get two different answers. They're going to say it was built thousand years ago. Because they were built before Jesus. I mean, yeah, they were built before Jesus. Keep that in mind. They was built before Jesus. Guess what? After when Jesus died, look how they turned. Look at, if you really want to know the truth, this how God really tried to wipe their ass out. If you look at it the way I'm looking at it. That's what made them folk believe. That's why the devil said, yeah, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, look, once you go to Italy, Greece, Turkey, all of Spain, France, all these people was in cahoots with Africa. Guess where Mansa Musa gold went to? Guess who got control of the gold now? So y'all know, if you look up at Mansa Musa, check this out. Man, if you look up Mansa Musa, look where he was born in. So that means Mansa Musa came after Jesus. Moses came after Jesus. Noah came after Jesus. Man, them folk came after Jesus. If Jesus died between 33 to 36 years in the first century, look when they folks wrote about him. 200 years later. Look, that means 200 years later they wrote the Bible and told the world about Jesus. Man, you had to tell the world about Jesus. Like, man, that man was so goddamn powerful. We witnessed, we heard the man preaching, we recorded it, but we're gonna make an idol. Back on worship, so we just gonna make a painting of Jesus and paint him in our likeness. So look, this how we gonna fool the world, right? So when we kill Jesus, we gonna kill him. Now we kill him now, right? But damn, when we killed him, man, God flood this motherfucker out. Look, once they flooded out, God is so real, he even spared Egypt, Liberty, all the real storage site is up on the sand, and this was up on the water. All this up on the water, you see it. This where all the Romans took control. If you look at Egypt, check this out. What I learned, Moses is really not a real character. But the people is real. Moses was a symbol. But he had, put it like this here. You got a symbol named Moses, but you got a clan. Guess who in the clan? Man, if you go, shit. To this, I swear to God, you gonna look at the Bible like Trey Gang. I swear to God, I love you right now. Cause everything you saying, you still recognizing Jesus. You still recognize the true God is a father and is a mother. They didn't even tell you about the queen of God. God can't make a baby by himself, bro. You see what I'm saying? A man can't make a baby by himself. A woman can't. That's impossible. It happened, bro. God actually got a bloodline down here. And you know what that bloodline is? Us. But when Satan fell, you got a Royal bloodline. Look how these people living with the cross. Check this out. Did you know Moses and them was already wearing the cross? They was already Muslims and Christians. Check this out. If you trace Adam, they said Adam and Eve was the first creation, right? That's what the Bible said. That's what the Bible said. They were the first creation. They weren't the first creation. Cause they want y'all to believe, hey, you know, a black man and a black woman, they can make a black baby and a white baby. No, they can't. They can make an albino baby, but not a white man. Not a white man. If you see when they killed Jesus, they had to come with a creation story with Noah's Ark and want you to believe that you were the descendant from Noah, Ham, Jacob, and Jacob. You see what I'm saying? Whoa! Noah looked like Santa Claus. Saint Nick looked like Santa Claus. The one that all seeing now is the eye Odin. That's the eye of Horus. It's so many names. It's so many names. And this is what I got out of this. Everything what I was taught in the Bible, I see the cover up. This what made me draw more to God on this one. It made me draw more to God and His Son. But they ain't gonna recognize the queen. The woman, bruh. Ain't that fucked up? Ain't that fucked up, though? You know what I'm saying? So look, if you look up Odin, the eye of Odin, that's the one that sacrificed his eye for wisdom. It was his strength. This like a... Man, this shit finna get so deep, y'all. Hold on, where I'm at? Where I'm at right quick. What family this is. Alright. Everybody know the DuPonts. They even have household products for us. The DuPont, but this is a royal bloodline. Check this out. When it come to God, God say He plant His seed in man. Check this out. When you read your Bible, you finna understand, damn. So they gave you some truth about Jesus. They told you, yeah, when He was here, it was already said He was gonna be here. They said He was coming through our bloodline. That was a lie. He didn't even come from their bloodline. Jesus came from what bloodline? Mary. Mary wasn't no bloodline of King David. She don't even have the same blood as King David, Moses, you know what I'm saying? Abraham, you know, Noah, Ham, Shem, or Jacob. Mary just popped out of nowhere. Keep that in mind. So God say, yeah, I'm gonna bless my seed through Adam and Eve, and it's gonna take generations and centuries for the prophecy to be filled, but it was already fulfilled before Adam and Eve. So that's why they repeat the history to us and made it look like a new beginning. So when they tell you that Jesus coming, they already saw him came. They already saw the man came, and they remember all those teachings. They recorded everything what that man said. They recorded it. They listened. And once they got enough of what they needed, crucify him and kill him. Watch this, y'all. This shit so crazy. I want to go to the y'all remember Jacob? Y'all remember Jacob in the Bible, right? Everybody, tell me if you know who Jacob is in the Bible. Maybe when I tell you this, it'll open up some eyes. Y'all remember Jacob in the Bible? Keep this in mind. We already know what tribe Jacob comes from. Y'all already know you know what I'm talking about. Jacob, right? So look, when it come to Jacob, think about the ladder of Jacob. Jacob's ladder, that Freemasonic shit. Jacob's ladder. Yeah, we finna open up a whole can of cook ass on this joint. Let me go to the Kennedy family. Keep this in mind. They are U.S. senators. All this shit, bro. Look. This the royal bloodline. Look. It's going back to the Kennedys. To the Kennedys. Man, when I found out about the Kennedys, I couldn't even believe the shit after when he died. Let me go to the Kennedy, because, man, I really don't want to pass all of this stuff, but I swear to God, it'll be every bit of worth it. Because you got the Freeman bloodline. The amazing thing about this family is that it is not a family that people would have thought of as being one of the top 13. This is a elite and satanic family. Check this out. Stephen M. Freeman run the legal affairs department of the Civil Rights Division. Hold up. Man, these folk writing now civil rights. No wonder why they got us marching in the street talking about we know why it's civil rights. Man, these folk got us preaching and holding signs, and we need weapons. And we need a gun in our hand like they got guns. They're just like talking me out my gun. You don't need no gun. Get you a sign and express your feelings on it. There you go, Tara. Ooh, Tara, you want it, because that's what I'm finna get to. Matter of fact, let me get to that, Tara. Man, I sure appreciate Tara. Tara always impress me. You know what I'm saying? Because that lady be paying attention. She do a research, you know what I'm saying? And can be funny at the same time. Because that lady be having some jokes. Had me in tears one night. Man, my stomach, check this out. I had a bird belly. When she cracked the joke and made me laugh, man, I had a 12-pack. Man, I had a 12-pack when I was laughing so hard, man, I wish I could take a photo instantly. Oh, look at this. Man, you heard me. Hold on, let me go to the Kennedy family. Because last night when I went live, and I'm like, ain't no, oh, shit. We here. There we go. Bro, this for a prime example. When you think about King Solomon, when they were building the temple, I didn't even know the Kennedy family had something to do with King Herod death. The Freemasonry that was building the temple. I'ma let this shit read to y'all. Damn, don't do me.
The Kennedy family.
All right, cool.
To be a researcher and to be informed that the Kennedy family is a top 13 Illuminati family is akin to being told a needle is in a haystack. Someone has estimated that there are 200,000 Kennedys in the United States, point one, and on a list of the most populous surnames of Ireland in 1890 Kennedy ranked 17th, point two, and a recent book listed it as 16th most common today. Fortunately, there is information that allows me to identify at least part of the satanic Kennedys from all the rest of the Kennedys. You will learn some of this later in the article. Kennedy ties to other elite families. Again, the ties between various Illuminati families is very involved and a long unraveling process, similar to untying a set of bad knots confronts the researcher. The Kennedy family abounds with marriages to names such as Anktells, Baileys, Booths, Buckleys, Collins, Hatfields.
Keep this in mind. Y'all remember that name, Booths? Who assassinated Abraham Lincoln? And what theater he was assassinated in? Whoa! It make a lot of sense to me when it comes to history. I'm glad that they taught me this in history about the Abraham Lincoln. Guess who shot him? Don't that last name look familiar right there? They taught you this in school. And Abraham Lincoln is on a penny. That's the only person that's on a copper penny. You see what I'm saying, Tara? Ooh wee. So think about Abraham Lincoln, and he was the president and signed for the slaves to be freed, and that pissed a lot of people off. Boy, that man signed something that nobody didn't want him to sign. Don't sign that bill. Do not sign it, Abraham. We need the slavery. We need that. That's how. Now we gotta demolish it. Look, watch this shit.
Hatfields, Humphreys, Freemans, James, Phelps, Reagans, Russells, and Smiths. Point three, the Kennedys that we will look closest at are related to the.
There go the Reagans. So you got the Booths, the Reagans, and the Freemans. Right? A part of the 13 Illuminati bloodline came from Lucifer himself. That's why they said 1/3. 1/3 is 13. You got 1 slash with a 3. That's 1/3, right? So that means 13. Boy, I'm on some Illuminati shit right now. Did that make a lot of sense how I just broke that down? When you read, when Lucifer fell, they said he brought 1/3 of heaven with him. So if he brought 1/3, how many people would there was? 1/3 of heaven. How many people was in heaven? We don't know. But kind of can look at it like, well, since you don't know, let's say 13 bloodlines. The original bloodline came from Satan and breathing in the world. With Herman, man, this shit crazy. With Hermes. That's why God was like, man, Satan come down here and seeing women, angels, they come down there having sex with humans and having babies. It makes sense why some of these little kids be assassinators, shooters, and you know what I'm saying, school shooters, you know, real hateful shit, bro. Like, man, this ain't no normal ass kid. He learned this in the household, bro. Watch this.
Royal, Sangral Sangreal is the term used in the older manuscripts, which can mean both royal bloodline or Holy Grail. Jackie Bouvier Kennedy Onassis, who married John F. Kennedy, was tied to the Auchinclosses via her sister's marriage into the Auchincloss family. The Auchinclosses are Scottish bloodline of the Illuminati. One can fairly hear the woof and tweet of history whistle through the names of the ramified Auchincloss tribe: Bunt, Grosvenor, Rockefeller, Saltonstall, Tiffany, Vanderbilt, and Winthrop, among others. 5, for instance, Hugh D. Auchincloss Sr. married Emma Brewster Jennings, daughter of Oliver B. Jennings, who co-founded Standard Oil with John D. Rockefeller. As for the numerous Kennedy intermarriages with notable names, for instance, Burnett Schaeffer Kennedy, 1798 to 1878, married Phoebe Freeman in 1820.6, but then the question arises, were either of these people secretly part of the occult? Andrew Kennedy married Margaret Penny Hatfield, 1824 to 1989. The Andrew Kennedy family is allied with the Hatfield, Bailey, Collins, and Mullins families. Point 8. Again, a person is confronted with a great deal of clues, but precious little time and resources to try following up the numerous leads. Origins of the family and the relationship of the Kennedys. 9. See footnote 9 for the reference to consult concerning this entire section. There are several versions of how the Kennedys got started, but when one goes in and examines things, what turns out is that the origins of the Kennedys is Ireland are very clear. They are descendants of Brian Bourne, also known as Brian Kennedy, and his nephew, who spelled it Cineide. The name thereafter was Okindi. They originally were a Dalcatian sept and were in the area near Killahoe, and Killikennedy Parish is a reminder of that ancient fact. The O'Briens and McNamaras forced them into new territories where they became the Lords of Ormond, what is now North Tipperary. Most Kennedys in Ireland today are still found in that area. The Kennedys remained powerful into the 16th century. The Kennedy family divided up into 3 branches. 1. Don Brown. 2. Finn Fair. 3. Rua Red. The Scottish Kennedys. Around 1600, a Scottish branch of the Kennedys appeared. There are several stories as to how they got their name Kennedy, and it is possible that they were not from Ireland. However, interestingly, genealogists have ascertained that whether the various branches of the aristocratic Kennedys in Scotland and Ireland may have different origins, because the origins of the Scottish branch is unclear, it can be shown that they all subsequently intermarried and became related if they were not related to begin with. Gail Marie Kennedy points this out on page 3 of her book, My Kennedy Ancestors. It is believed that all the foregoing Kennedy families are related either by virtue of being descendants of common ancestors or by intermarriage. I looked up in Burke's General Armory to get a listing of the aristocratic Kennedys, and here is what I got. Kennedys of Ardmillan, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Auchtyfartle, County Lanark, 1752. Kennedys of Blairhwan, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Cloburn, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Cultura, County Down, Northern Ireland. Kennedys of Dublin Fun Ent, 1595, Ulster, Ireland. Kennedys of Girvanmains, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Hillfoot, Ireland. Kennedys of Kirkmeheal, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Kermucks, Aberdeen, Scotland. Kennedys of Londonderry, Northern Ireland. Kennedys of Tombrecken, County Tipperary, Ireland. Kennedys of Underwood, County Ayr, 1850, Scotland. Kennedys of Visit Dublin, 1607, Ireland. Johnstown Kennedy of County.
So look, when you look at the years, think about when they named Virginia Jamestown. Y'all know King James version of the Bible, it was founded in Virginia named Jamestown after the man that brought the King James version. Once you find out who King James version is, they go back to Queen Elizabeth. If you check this out, if you go back to Christopher Columbus said, I discovered America in the 1492. That was a lie because he landed in Cuba. But look how the Kennedy's family tree go back to the third president, Christopher Columbus, all the way back in the Book of Kings, the Book of Solomon. Excuse me, y'all. The kush kicking my ass over here. My eyes watering. I had to take my shirt off. I'm sweating bullets over here. Boy, they weren't lying when they said, yeah, take 2 hits and that's it. I took 4. And I'm finna take another 2 more because I want to know if this shit true or not. Now, y'all see this? Check this out. Think about the JFK assassinated. You think he got assassinated all because he was talking about the man on the moon? That's one reason. The war, he need to bring the troops home. That's another reason. He was already a mob affiliated and pissed a lot of mobs off because they the one that helped him get elected. So he got assassinated. Once he got assassinated, guess what they did? They tried to assassinate the whole Kennedy family. You went against the oath. So guess who be in charge of the assassinated committee? If you want to know every assassination that happened from Abraham Lincoln to the first president, guess what Trey Gang showed y'all? Who is the royal family that's control the assassination committee in the world? They the one that say, you want to assassinate him? What's the reason? We need to do this. Boom. Stamp that, verify, assassinate him. Soon as you assassinate him, you got to give it to the media. Be like, well, this ain't no real assassination. These just people protesting and shooting people. No. Look.
1. Don Brown. 2. Finn Fair. 3. REWROTE. The Scottish Kennedys. Around 1600, a Scottish branch of the Kennedys appeared. There are several stories as to how they got their name Kennedy, and it is possible that they were not from Ireland. However, interestingly, genealogists have ascertained that whether the various branches of the aristocratic Kennedys in Scotland and Ireland may have different origins, because the origins of the Scottish branch is unclear. It can be shown that they all subsequently intermarried and became related if they were not related to begin with. Gail Marie Kennedy points this out on page 3 of her book, My Kennedy Ancestors. It is believed that all the foregoing Kennedy families are related either by virtue of being descendants of common ancestors or by intermarriage. I looked up in Burke's General Armory to get a listing of the aristocratic Kennedys, and here is what I got. Kennedys of Ardmillan, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Auchtyfartle, County Lanark, 1752. Kennedys of Blairhwan, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Cloburn, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Cultura, County Down, Northern Ireland. Kennedys of Dublin Fun Ent, 1595, Ulster, Ireland. Kennedys of Girvanmains, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Hill Foot, Ireland. Kennedys of Kirkmeheal, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Kermux, Aberdeen, Scotland. Kennedys of Londonderry, Northern Ireland. Kennedys of Tombrecken, County Tipperary, Ireland. Kennedys of Underwood, County Ayr, 1850, Scotland. Kennedys of Visit Dublin, 1607, Ireland. Johnstown Kennedy of County Dublin, Ireland. Kennedys of Bargany and Ardstenshire, County Ayr, Scotland. Kennedys of Kirkhill from the Bargany Group, 1678, Scotland. It is clear that there have been quite a number of powerful aristocratic Kennedys. One of the more powerful recent Scottish aristocrat Kennedys was the Marquess of Ailsa, 1872 to 1943. Because he is often called the Marquess of Ailsa, you might not know him by his name Archibald Kennedy, who was the 15th Earl of Cassilis. This branch of the Kennedys married into Scottish royalty. For instance, Sir James Kennedy married Mary, a daughter of King Robert III, and their son was Sir Gilbert Kennedy, was made Lord Kennedy before 1458. Archibald.
Whoa! Ain't that the big 1458? Christopher Columbus discovered Cuba. And keep this in mind. If they said Christopher Columbus discovered America and he never set foot on America and he landed in Cuba, Bahamas, and all of this, right? So that's why Kennedy got assassinated, because of the Cuban War too. Because that's when the war was going on and the mob needed that war to overthrow Castro. Man, this shit some cold shit once you dig into research. These people, George Bush had a motive. The Clintons had a motive to kill JFK. If you look at the assassination of JFK, it wasn't nobody but the 13 royal bloodline where multiple families agreed. It was like, yeah, the Kennedys fucked up. Look.
Archibald Kennedy was an extremely powerful Freemason and held numerous key positions in the Grand Lodge of Scotland. He was first Grand Principal from 1913.
2.
To his death in 1943. At his death, his titles passed to his brother Charles. Archibald Kennedy was initiated in Holyrood House Lodge No. 44, Edinburgh, November 17, 1896. 10,000 Famous Freemasons. Volume L. Put out by the Missouri Lodge of Research, page 8. How are the various prominent Kennedys related? So the question always arises as I examine the elite of the Illuminati and the New World Order: how is this Kennedy related to this other Kennedy? For instance, how is David M. Kennedy, who is a Bilderberger, and William Jesse Kennedy III, who is a key man for the Duke Illuminati family? He is president of Mutual Life Insur. Co., a Duke financial asset, DIR of RCA, trustee of the Ford Theater where the elite killed Lincoln, and associated with the Pilgrim SOC through the Conference Board of NYC? Although I can't explain the exact ties, I can safely say that if one goes back several hundred years, the Kennedy aristocrats all tie together. Beginning at the beginning. One of my first clues that the Kennedys had something to do with the Illuminati was the conspiracy book The Widow's Son.
Now y'all see why I was named the beginning of beginnings? If I tell y'all they crucified Jesus, and after they crucified Jesus, that's where the Old Testament come in there, because they crucified Jesus and they came with the Old Testament to give you new creation. Talking about, yeah, this a prophecy and it's gonna be a Messiah coming soon, because they already knew the second coming is coming, bruh. They saw it, they witnessed it, that it's finna be a second coming, because whatever Jesus said, they had to believe. So do this make sense? And keep this in mind, the Kennedys had something to do with the Illuminati conspiracy theory with the widow's son. You should know who the widow's son is in the Bible. And that's in the book. In the Old Testament. Look.
The Historical Illuminatus Chronicles, Volume 2, by Robert Anton Wilson. Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea, authors of Illuminatus, are not Christians. On the contrary, they are regular participants in the Central Ohio Starwood Festival for Witches and Pagans. Robert Anton Wilson has publicly on a number of occasions explained that he is a Gnostic and a great fan of Aleister Crowley. I picked up Wilson's book The Widow's Son in a satanic/New Age bookstore. In both Volume 2, the teaser chapter at the end, and in Volume 3 of the Historical Illuminatus Chronicles, one is taught the significance of Brian Kennedy, the first Kennedy, and how Brian Kennedy's blood got into some very important royal bloodlines. It is interesting that an informed man like Wilson, who spends time doing rituals with Gnostics and witches, would declare that the Kennedy family is an important bloodline in connection with the Illuminati. How many people knew that Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House of Representatives, was a descendant of the Kennedy clan? Wilson writes for New Agers and Witches, not for Christians. One gets the feel that his experience with the occult has somehow given him a very good idea of what is going on in terms of the Masons, the Illuminati, etc. He writes his books in such a way that they are historical novels with a great deal of facts, and yet one is always left wondering by the style of writing whether the author wants to be taken serious or not. Is what he writes make-believe or history padded with some fiction? I personally believe it is just the way the occult works. They expose the facts for their own people, but in a way that will not be taken seriously by others. Wilson acts like a buffoon one minute and a serious conspiracy researcher the next, and he will act both ways all in one article, or even on a single page of his books. When a person checks up on Wilson's facts, they usually hold true. On my part, the information about Brian Kennedy was astounding. I had to go as soon as possible to verify it from other sources, and it turns out Wilson was accurate about their genealogy, and their importance in the Illuminati activities historically, etc. The Illuminati and Matthew Kennedy. One of the chief lodges for the branch Illuminati prior to 1784 was located in a huge chateau at Armenonville near Paris, France. The land belonged to the Marquis of Girardin, who protected Rousseau and later gave Rousseau a tomb on his estate. Saint Germain presided over this illuminated lodge. This illuminated lodge carried out blood rituals with an altar made from human bones. Interestingly, one of Saint Germain's good friends who came over from Ireland to Paris was Matthew Kennedy, 1652 to 1735. Matthew Kennedy was connected with Saint Germain's court and wrote a chronological, genealogical, and historical dissertation of the royal family of the Stuarts. In 1613, the Stuart family had married into the Sangreal and began to play a role in the genealogies of the Prieur de Chaun. Frederick of the Palatinate, after he married Elizabeth Stuart, established an occult, Rosicrucian state. It was Frederick who helped start the Bloody 30 Years' War between the Protestants and Catholics.
So, go look up the Rosicrucian. So you mean to tell me these people created the Rosicrucian too? Now you would see their agenda, because I read the shit on the... These people were talking about population control, religions, and how there's going to be a new world government, and they wrote this shit in stones. Look, after Jesus' death, you still have cavemen still writing on stones. That's crazy. That's crazy. Now watch this.
Catholics. The Stuarts spread the Scottish rite of Freemasonry throughout Europe. For a while, the Prieur de Chaun seems to have backed the Stuarts, but at some point quit. Saint Germain is revered as a Christ figure by the I Am movement and the Church Universal Triumphant and other New Age groups. A picture that looks similar to Christ, but which is actually a picture of Saint Germain hangs in many of. 3. The houses of people involved with the I Am movement or its spin-offs. It is significant that an Irish Kennedy who was interested and liked the Stuart dynasty would be part of Saint Germain's court and a popular writer for them. John Fitzgerald Kennedy. If John F. Kennedy had not been assassinated and so much about his life examined and written about, a window allowing us to see the Kennedy Illuminati family may never have opened so wide. First, the assassination attracted attention. In recent years, the Illuminati have given permission to publishing houses to print exposes of JFK's sexual life, etc. 11. It is believed that this permission was given in an effort to deflect criticism of his assassination by allowing his reputation to be tarnished. 12. I hope my readers are beginning to realize that things are totally corrupt at the top, and that JFK was no different than so many others that have been and are today at the top of the political mess in this nation. John F. Kennedy had a very active sex life, even after he married Jackie, and even after he was president in the White House. For those who don't think secrets can be kept by the elite, one only has to look at how John F. Kennedy was able to have sex with many women while president and to have frequent nude swim parties at the White House pool, and the general public not know anything about it. 13. John F. Kennedy's lust for women was well known by the elite. Illuminatus McGeorge Bundy warned his friend JFK, while JFK was a senator, that John's openness with women might get him into trouble with the public. John F. Kennedy was so open about his sexual habit that at one party at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C., John F. Kennedy openly had sex with one partner in front of the party, while his friend Senator Estes Kefauver did the same. Then they swapped partners and began again in plain view. John F. Kennedy had many one-night stands, as the world calls them. These were merely women hustled up by his aides or the Secret Service or his friends like Frank Sinatra. But Kennedy also had long-term relationships with some of the women he was sexually active with. It is those relationships which reveal so much about the hidden satanic side of the Kennedys.
And that bitch, they got a lot to do with underage girls like the P. Diddy's. So when I did the Jeffrey Epstein file, look at the name that's on them. Boy, if you show a name, if you show the Epstein Black Book, right, a lot of names gonna sound familiar to us, like Donald Trump, Bill Clinton. No, names like that. But nobody ain't gonna know about the other names, like who are these people? Like, I remember when what's his name? The Alice dude, Alice Jones. The first time I ever heard of Bohemian Grove because of Alice Jones, because that's when he caught all the presidents: Nixon, Jimmy Carter, George Bush, Clinton, all in California at the Bohemian Grove with no women there, but a bunch of little underage boys. Why do you think they keeping Jeffrey Epstein name a secret? Come on, bro. They got you in there too, like, oh yeah, he met these people through when he was doing, man, he made family. Look.
John F. Kennedy had 3 long-term girlfriends, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, and Zsa Zsa Gabor, which were also girlfriends of Anton LaVey, who has headed the Church of Satan. Jane Mansfield was a
These people dated a Satanist, LaVey, Man!
High Priestess of the Church of Satan. Marilyn Monroe was a participant in Levy's satanic rituals before Levy founded his Church of Satan. Both JFK and his brother Robert Kennedy had affairs going with Marilyn Monroe, and both visited her just prior to her mysterious death. Zsa Zsa has been interested for years in the occult. JFK also had relationships with other women connected with the Illuminati also. Before we examine the significance of these three relationships of JFK's, and before we get into his liaisons with other women who were Illuminati connected, let's cover the relationship between Anton LaVey and the Illuminati. California was very fertile soil for Satanism due to a host of factors. Two lesser-known factors are that there were Haitian communities which practiced voodoo in California at the early part of the century. Also, California became a haven for witches and Satanists fleeing from France. So, America, Cuba, and other places where their satanic practices were not tolerated. California had a reputation for acceptance of their evil rituals. When one adds to this such things as Hollywood, it is easy to see how San Bernardino Valley has become such a strong satanic center. Anton LaVey's maternal grandmother was from Transylvania. It was from that side of the family the Anton got some encouragement toward the occult. Anton LaVey loved horror movies. He studied Aleister Crowley and the Okio, which had lodges in California, which is where he lived, and in 1947 he joined the Clyde Beatty Circus. The Beatty family connects in with the Illuminati families also, by the way. LaVey worked for several circuses and learned how to be a showman. He worked the occult sideshows of the circus and found that people wanted to believe occult frauds. Anton LaVey found Marilyn Monroe, a Jewish girl, working as a striptease in the strip clubs. LaVey helped her performance, and through his connections got her started on her big career. LaVey used his talent of showmanship to create a type of Satanism that could be marketed to the public. LaVey always manages to walk a tightrope between openly supporting hardcore satanic practices such as human sacrifice and being just simply theatrics. In other words, he blatantly supports enough evil to attract evil people, but he publicly never allows himself to be connected in any way with child molestation, human sacrifice, etc.
And I'm told y'all, bro, man, y'all better wake up to this shit. These the same people that give you the Mermaid movie, the Power Rangers, you know what I'm saying, the Dora Explorers, the goddamn Tom and Jerry. All that shit got a meaning to it. Man, we can look at some old Tom and Jerry and see why the cat always chasing the mouse. What's the beef about? What's up with Mickey Mouse hanging with dogs and, you know what I'm saying, and chickens and shit? They got your kids thinking cows can talk, frogs to turn into prince, and all this magical shit that they see when they get high on drugs. They see spirits and demons and all this and translate it to a movie and hypnotize your kid, and next thing you know, your kids believe in their spirits now. Not the spirit they supposed to believe in, but a demon. Look. So Anton LaVey, the one that got Marilyn Monroe started, it makes sense. It makes sense why they tried to make that man look bad when he came to Marilyn Monroe. Cause I was like, damn, if he was married, why he hanging with Marilyn Monroe? And then his brother fucking with her. Then the mob, I done seen some interview when the mob was like, yeah, they put Marilyn Monroe on. Keep this in mind, the mob don't even run shit. They just middleman. Them the ones that's want to be kingpin drug dealers. Them the one that's gonna bring the drugs and all of this, all because of the 13 royal bloodline allowed them to do that. You see what I'm saying? That's how the dope. That's what Dick Gregory was talking about. Man, look. Man, when I went back to Dick Gregory, it made a lot of sense when that man was talking about Donald Trump and all this. At that time, I liked Trump. I'm like, nah, you kind of wrong on that, Dick Gregory. But Dick Gregory knew what we were talking about. That man said, don't let Donald Trump get in that office. Y'all gonna see some shit. And guess what? We seeing some shit. But watch this though, y'all.
Anton LaVey was into Satanism before the 1960s, but it was not until 1966 that he founded the Church of Satan. Some hardcore Satanists feel he is all show. Other hardcore Satanists form covens and try to serve Anton LaVey because they view him as a role model. 4. The Illuminati set up their headquarters in Southern California this century. San Bernardino County is their headquarters. Of course, as I have written before, that the Illuminati is too secret to carry out anything themselves. They need co-workers. The Illuminati is strictly hereditary. The Illuminati secretly control the satanic cults at what is sometimes described as Stage 4 and Stage 5 of Satanism. The lower levels are for recruits, the grunts, the privates, so to speak, in Satan's army. In the San Bernardino area, one type of high priest of Stage 2 or 3 is the Master Counselor. Other positions include the Keeper of the Books and the Keeper of the Seal. In the late 60s, Mike Warnke, who was a high priest, a master counselor, raised the number of Satanists in the first 3 stages to 1,500 members in the San Bernardino area, San Bernardino, Riverside, Colton. Bear in mind that these 1,500 active Satanists are not Illuminati members. They are much lower than the lower Illuminati ranks, such as the Sisters of Light. The Sisters of Light and 5-star generals, and an Asmodeus, who are the middle management types of the world order, who direct the upper levels of priests of the covens of Satanism that are open to the public. Anton LaVey participates in conferences for the occult where Satanism, the first 3 stages, and secret Illuminati overseers are present. In other words, LaVey is not out of touch with hardcore Satanism. He just manages to keep his public profile clean. It is meant that way. Anton LaVey is a publicity agent to give Satanism a good image. Marilyn Monroe. Anton LaVey knew how to be a showman. He took Marilyn Monroe, helped her with her acting, and with his connections helped her get a chance to act. John F. Kennedy had a long-term relationship with Marilyn Monroe. When JFK was elected at the convention to be the presidential candidate, the Kennedys threw a party at the convention. The party was described this way: every delegate at the convenzione was provided by the Kennedy group with anything they wanted for their entertainment, including liquor and women sent to their room. JFK spent the time at the convention and the next day afterwards making love to Marilyn Monroe. After his acceptance speech, the whole group went over to his close friend Peter Lawford's for a skinny dipping party.
So that's how the Illuminati work. They sunk Marilyn Monroe on Kennedy to get him in a compromised position with Marilyn Monroe. It was a setup when they gave him Marilyn Monroe, because they let you know that's when he started fucking up. This where the mob come in there, because they the one that marketed him and Marilyn Monroe, because they made it look like, oh, you see how Marilyn Monroe was singing to the president? What Jackie was? Jackie, you see how she's singing to him? Cause he just a man. Don't y'all know who Jackie married? John F. Kennedy's wife married after his death? That's the fucked up part about it. I'm gonna play the video.
Party. Peter Lawford, Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis Jr. were close friends to each other and to John F. Kennedy. Sammy Davis Jr. became a member of the Church of Satan after LaVey started it. From the middle of 1955 to the end of 1959, JFK had a suite on the 8th floor of Washington's Mayflower Hotel set aside for his extramarital affairs. FBI file.
So damn, they had this shit in the Washington Mayflower Hotel? Damn. Santana churches? Yeah. But if I tell everybody how Crown Plaza operate, hey, those people at the front there, they more than just employees. They family. No wonder why I'm getting family involved, because you got family married into family, and the powerful people using the weak family as puppets in the news media. That's why you got Donald Trump, Barack Obama, all them. But we thinking these people powerful because we see them making signing bills, doing decisions, sending troops to war. It's not they call, it's somebody else call, and it's from 13 bloodline families. Just 13 families that control Hollywood, the president, the war, the gold, the silver, the money, the banks, the history. Man, these people really running the world. 13 families. That's bigger than Crips and Blood fighting over little bit ass blocks and killing each other over there, John. Now that's some king shit. But look, watch this.
Jane Mansfield. During the 1960s, Jane Mansfield and John F. Kennedy had their relationship. They met at places like Beverly Hills, Malibu, Palm Springs.
And that's what P. Diddy and them met in Beverly Hills. But they were throwing no lavish parties and got busted. The human trafficking in Malibu and Palm Springs, Florida. Guess who did it before Diddy? Look who was doing this shit before Diddy. Beverly Hills.
JFK had several men who bearded for him. That is, they would act like the women JFK was to get were their own date. One of these was Dave Powers, who even went so far as to write in a book, Johnny, "We hardly knew ye that whenever Jackie left Washington, JFK, Jack, and him would eat together, and then the president would say his prayers and go to bed alone." One of the things Dave Powers did was to help procure a steady stream of new women for Jack. Some of the other ongoing sexual relationship that JFK maintained were Lady Jean Campbell, daughter of the Duke of Argyll, Flo Pritchett Smith, wife of the American ambassador to Cuba, KK Hannon Auchincloss. In this case, although they had a long-term close relationship now, one knows what they did together. Judith Campbell Exner. Judith was Sinatra's girlfriend who he passed on as a favor. Judith worked for the mafia. In particular, she worked for Sam Giancana and John Rosselli, who for some reason also both worked for the CIA.
That's crazy. And look who's in control of the CIA, the head director, George Bush daddy. And guess who was higher up than George Bush daddy in the CIA? The 13 Illuminati blood family members.
Taya.
Exner ran letters between the mafia and John F. Kennedy while he was president. According to People magazine, The Dark Side of Camelot, February 29, 1988. 5. It is also known that JFK was in direct contact with Meyer Lansky and Joe Fischetti, two other mafia chiefs, and that he benefited from money they passed on to him. This is no surprise because Jack's father had worked with the mafia Jack's entire life. There are a number of respectable books by ex-Satanists or ex-organized crime members where they are clear about how those groups love to blackmail people. John F. Kennedy certainly could have been easily blackmailed by these groups if they had wanted to. I haven't seen any indication that blackmail was even tried, so the only other conclusion, which fits a lot of evidence, is that John F. Kennedy worked with the Satanists and the Mafia. In fact, the Mafia rigged several important counties in the election, like in Chicago, which tipped the scales in John winning the presidency. That's an entirely different thing that this article won't get sidetracked on. A poem by Jackie. Something that Jackie wrote on their honeymoon about Jack seems to me significant. When Jack and Jackie were newlyweds after their wedding September 1953, the president of Mexico, Don Miguel Alemán, let Jackie and Jack use his villa. During their use of the Mexican president's villa, Jackie wrote a poem about John, her new husband. He would find love. He would never find peace. For he must go seeking. The Golden Fleece. A woman named Jackie, page 134. One of the writing projects that I have wanted to see done, and I have delegated it to a good friend, is to give my readers an article on MJ-12, aka the Wise Men or the Study Group. This group of men actually run the United States. I know a good deal about the Study Group. In fact, if my sources are correct, it isn't a formal group anymore. There are not formal meetings, but rather meetings happen at random with people accidentally bumping into each other. MJ-12 draws members from the Jason Society and the Jason Group. Both the Jason Society and the Jason Group are named after Jason and the Golden Fleece. There are reasons to believe that Jackie knew some of the way the power structure operated. Jackie was good friends with many of the top Illuminati men in this nation. In fact, she ended up marrying Onassis, who was a king in Moriah, the Illuminati. Could Jackie have meant in this poem that Jack was wanting to climb the ladder clear up to the Golden Fleece, i.e. the Jason? Society and MJ-12. Joseph Kennedy. Joseph Kennedy was John F. Kennedy's father. Through various means, I independently learned that Joseph Kennedy was part of the Illuminati. He was a member of the Pilgrim Society, a 60 of the branch Illuminati. He also worked closely with the Mafia and other kingpins in the Illuminati. Perhaps in another article we can cover more about Joseph Kennedy. This article is about long enough. I thought I might wrap it up with a story about Joseph Kennedy. The story demonstrates that much of what politicians tell the public is simply for their own benefit, and often only lies. Jack Kennedy got the reputation after Britain and the Germany began fighting in WW2 as being against the United States entering the war. Jack Kennedy held the prestigious job of being the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain at the time. The fact that Jack Kennedy was given such an extremely vital position shows that the Kennedy family is important within the Illuminati. At that point in time, like no other time, it was important who the U.S. had as ambassador. After the war began and both countries had martial law and extensive military communications, the ambassador was really not quite so critical in his role. 1. Of the men who worked at the embassy for the Americans was an American Tyler Gatewood Kent, a 6. career officer in the U.S. Consular Service. Tyler Kent believed in a world conspiracy before he began working in the code room. While he worked there, he was astonished that Roosevelt was secretly involving the United States in WW2 and lying to the American public. Further, Roosevelt was pulling strings to get us involved while lying to the public. Kent secretly took 1,500 PGS of secret documents, which he was going to show to the public to expose the conspiracy. Kent never made it. He was arrested. In order for the British to hold him, Jack Kennedy had to revoke his diplomatic immunity on May 20th, 1940. Ambassador Joe Kennedy did that so he could receive a harsh sentence, because if he had been brought back to America, the public might have gotten outraged at what the politicians had done. According to standard operating procedure and protocol, Kent should have stood trial in the U.S. The papers he had taken were American embassy papers, not British. Although the court records show that no evidence was introduced that Kent was a spy, Joseph Kennedy later would concoct a long story for the public that Kent was a Nazi spy. Kennedy went on speaking engagements around the U.S. after he was relieved of his ambassador post, and Kennedy made it sound like he was wholeheartedly against the war. If Kennedy had really been against the war, if he had simply denied the British the chance to keep Kent, Kent could have spilled the beans about what Roosevelt was doing, and the outraged would have destroyed Roosevelt's chances to fool the American people. Instead, Roosevelt was able to proceed and develop the elements for the Pearl Harbor attack. While Kennedy pretended to be against the war, he was serving as an intimate accomplice in maneuvers designed to fool the American people. This is a good example of how even today the public is looking to certain public officials to save them. They think that these politicians will try everything possible to help them fight the system, so when they fail to beat the system, the people think they have been beaten fairly. To be continued. Notes. 1. This estimate was made by a Kennedy descendant, Gail Marie Kennedy, who did genealogical research. See My Kennedy Ancestors of Fairfield Company. SC self-published Spartanburg, South Carolina, August 12, 1969. 2. Irish Genealogical Foundation. The Great Families of Ireland. Kansas City, Missouri. Irish Genealogical Foundation, 1981, page 373. 3. This list of families is compiled from genealogical research and is derived from about 20 sources. Decided not to list all those here, but to give a small sampling. Alt Peter, Ullian Horton. Ancestors and descendants of Stephen and Jane Horton. Irwin, Francis Houston. The genealogy of Helen Frances Landown Campbell. Kennedy, Russell. Genealogical descendants of David and Jane Geeson Kennedy. Pettibone, I. Fayette. Genealogy of the Pettibone family. 4. The determination that the family is an Illuminati family is from the author's research. 5. Haymon, C. David. A woman named Jackie. New York. Carroll Communications, 1989, page 52. 6. I've lost the reference, but another book which makes a marriage connection between the Freeman family and the Kennedys is Freeman D. Early History of the Freeman Family. 7. Kennedy, Genevieve see some descendants of Andrew Kennedy and Margaret Penny Hatfield.
So when the Kennedy married into the Bloodlines, look how they treated the Kennedys. Made them puppets. This is some crazy wild shit. This is crazy. The whole time the devil wanted to make the world believe that he don't even exist, but your bloodline is on TV every day. Every day that we see him. These people playing God. These people on missiles, nukes. These people is the God of war. Come on, man. Look at this shit. So that's why the Kennedys would be getting assassinated and they use the Kennedys. Yeah, right. We'll make you president. We don't want to be no goddamn president. President just ain't shit. We call all the shots. You see what I'm saying? So when you fuck up, hey, just let you know, it's always the close one to you that can get to you. It's too much security. It's too much security for you let somebody in the public get to you now. You know what I'm saying? Now that makes me think that Donald Trump assassinating was staged. Because if you look at when Donald Trump was getting assassinated, that's when that Jeffrey Epstein case was so hot. They need to do something. Donald Trump get on that stage and goddamn put that blood pill in your ear, and once you hear that shot, slap your ear like, what that, a fucking mosquito? And that little blood drip. And next thing you know, your ear is intact. The next interview you did. Shit, if I get bit by a mosquito bite, shit, that bump from the last a goddamn come on, bro. Hold on, watch this. Check out how the Freemen would do the Kennedys.
8. Ibid. 7. 9. For this section's information, see the following 3 items listed as of and see A. Grehen, Ida. Irish. Family. Names. London, 1973. B. Kennedy, Major FME. A family of Kennedy of. Clogher. And Londonderry. C. 1600 do 1938 Tonten, UK, 1938 rok. C. Callanan, M. Records of 4 Tipperary sets. Galway, 1938. 10. For confirmation of the Kennedy family origins in Brian Kennedy, there are numerous sources, for instance, the Irish Genealogical Foundation's good book, The Great Families of Ireland. Also quite a number of Irish history books discuss Brian Kennedy, aka Brian Boru, and some of the Kennedy genealogy books also discuss the origins. 11. Statement made verbally to author. 12. Ibid.
13 Heijman, op. Shit. pp 278-292.
John F. Kennedy had nude swimming parties almost daily at the White House. Chapter 18 tells the long story of JFK's almost daily extramarital sex in the White House and his frequent nude swim parties. Some of the original sources come from confidential Secret Service reports provided under the Freedom of Information Act. Revisiting the top 13 Illuminati Kennedy family. The intention originally.
Damn, so they cutting up at the White House. I sure want to see that pool, cause when you think about the White House now, come on now. You know it got to be going down in the White House. That's the White House. Boy, just imagine when they get through giving us a news press conference like, yeah, we got China up in this John, and China gonna sign this bill, so we gonna up the tariff rates on this shit. You know what I'm talking about? And all this, and when they cut those lights and cameras off, they got little girls jumping in the pool, skinny dipping. While we like, damn, boy, China this shit finna hit them. Man, these people got our head fucked up, bruh. Man, these folks got our head so fucked up in this shit. Yeah, let's go over there and get Bin Laden. Yeah, let's go get him. Yeah, he done blowed up the World Trade Tower. Yeah, he fucked up. Man, got us going on this shit. That man, and the whole time, they went over there and picked the man up. They ain't killed him. They picked the man up like, come on, Bin Laden, we gotta get out of here. We told everybody that you did it, you know what I'm saying? So we gotta send those choppers in that motherfucker and make it look like we did you in this shit. Man, that man is perfectly fine and healthy. And beat diabetes. Yeah. Last time I saw Bin Laden, he was at the 7-Eleven. Talking about, yeah, this 388 for a Slurpee. You know what I'm talking about? Big gulp. I said, Bin Laden, that's you. And when I said I got pulled over down the street, man, I said, man, I knew it. I knew that was him. Look just like it. He just shaved a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? He just shaved a little bit. They lying over here, bruh. Over here with his nieces and nephews. Man, they even stayed down the street from the White House and got their name on the motherfucker, the Bin Laden house. I couldn't believe it. I went on Google Maps. That folk got a address box. You know your mailbox sit out in front of your house? Them motherfucker had Bin Laden on them motherfucker. The Bin Laden family. Then if you go on Google Maps, you'll see your little nieces on that joint. I said, yep, that's her. You know what I'm talking about? That's Bin Laden. That's why they said they killed him and buried him in sea, lying like a motherfucker. They show you what happened to Hussein. They ain't like Hussein. They show you they killed him. They done hung that man. They done hung that man, goddamn it, like it was ancient time. Like, yeah, put him on a patio. We don't want to hang him on a tree. Get him on the patio to make that nigga stand right here in this square, and we gonna pull the flow out and make that nigga drop. I said, shit. I know that money had to pay good to be a guard back in those days. Shit, chopping off heads and shit to be a goddamn executioner. Damn, just imagine. You an executioner, and then look at the uniform you had to wear. Them folks finna get your ass a big ass axe knife. Then you gotta wear a big ass KKK robe. You know, yours might be black. You know what I'm talking about. And then you gotta wear these big ass, you know, these fishnets, goddamn armor suits and shit. And they ain't even had AC back in those days, so it's gonna be hot as hell in that temple. Yeah, that motherfucker gonna be hell in that mother. Like, damn, it's hot in that motherfucker. Jesus said, this weather supposed to be cool like the mist of God. You know what I'm talking about? It's hot as fuck in here. You know what I'm talking about? Man, them folk knew it was hell. Man, you coming in there, they were like, who in the chat? Who in the chat? You know what I'm talking about? Be like, yeah, Sharon, come in here. Here go your ex right here. We finna bring Snoop out here. What Snoop did? Yeah, he done stole a candy bar. Candy bar? Yeah. Yeah, we gotta execute him because he's stealing. You gotta chop his hands off. Man, you think you will do it? You'll go to work every day after that? I want to know. Yeah, but I gotta go in today. They calling me. They got another nigga. I need to cut some more hands off. Man, that's a fucked up ass job to have back in the medieval century. Shit. And then you gotta chase it. Your future just down in the Fred Flintstone car. Your tires made out of stone. No motor. You know what I'm saying? You basically got to, you know, skateboard that motherfucker. Like, I mean, I think about all that shit. Cause I wanna know why did when it come to Fred Flintstone, why his name was Flintstone? But his name was Fred. When you got a man in the cave named Fred, that what got me like, damn. They just like walking in the woods and shit, and you see a homeless guy look like Jesus in the cave and shit, you know what I'm saying? And you walk up to him and be like, hey, brother, how you doing? Like, yeah, you know what I'm about. And he be like, yeah, man, you know, man, my name Fred. Fred? Yeah, my name Fred Flintstone. And then, you know, damn, nigga, I ain't know who you was, nigga, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a man, a white man come out the goddamn cave and shit with long hair looking like a goat coming out the cave with his robe. And he like, hi, my name Fred Flintstone. Fred Flintstone? Yeah, this my girl Betty. Yeah, they go, you know what I'm talking about? That's my best friend. That's Barney over there. Like, Barney? Like, yeah, like, damn. Look at my little girl Pebbles right here. Pebbles? You gonna be like, oh, shit. Hey, man, come on out that cave and shit, man. You know what I'm saying, man? We got some meat. You know what I'm saying? We got some hog maws and, you know what I'm saying, some pork chops. And what's a pork chop? You don't know what a pork chop is? No. And when they seen the flame, when they first seen the fire, they were like, what the fuck is that? They're like, man, you don't know what fire is? Shit, nigga, we finna cook some goddamn chicken in there, mother. And he was like, chicken? The fuck is a chicken? Cause ain't no chicken roaming in the desert. Not in no Caucasus Mountain. Not in no Caucasus Mountain. No motherfucking rooster or a chicken roaming around that motherfucker. You just got goats and shit. You know what I'm talking about? Oh yeah. Hold on. Matter of fact, let me play that junk then.
Originally was to have the R-tide on the top Illuminati Kennedy family in 2 parts. Perhaps sometime a second part can come out. So far I have only exposed a small part of the Illuminati Kennedy. As might be expected of any good Illuminati family, the Kennedy are connected to drugs, to the Monarch program, to death euthanasia programs, to the British monarchy, and to the various organized crimes group, mafias, etc. For this issue, I merely want to cover a few aspects of the Kennedy family, which I didn't take the time to cover in the May 15th, 93 issue. One aspect is the connection of the Illuminati Kennedys to the drug trade, and another is their connection to death care and the Knights of Malta. Readers are invited to read more about the Knights of Malta in one of the last articles in this newsletter. After WW, Joseph Kennedy worked for Galen Stone, who was a partner in the prominent firm of Hayden, Stone and Company. Hayden, Stone and Company had ties to the Rothschilds. In order to gain respectability, Joe married into the Fitzgerald family. This is a common Illuminati tactic. It seems many of the Illuminati men look for a wife who will gain them respectability. Often wives like this are not even brought into the Illuminati activities so that they can be the best cover possible. Kennedy's mob connection has been written about, but perhaps 2 are worth pointing out again. Joseph Lindsay, who is a kingpin of organized crime in New England and a partner in crime with Meyer Lawn Sky, was a crime business partner with Joseph Kennedy. Joseph Lindsay, in fact, was listed as the top contributor to Ted Kennedy's Senate race one year. Andre Meyer, head of the Meyer family, was manager of the Kennedy estates. One other business partner of Kennedy was the Bronfmans, who are powerful Illuminati figures in Canada. Kennedy was in business with Newark's Reinfield Syndicate, of which the Bronfmans owned 50%. Winston Churchill, whose connections to the elite are brought out in other newsletters, personally gave the grant to Joe Kennedy, which gave him the Brit Alcoholic Distillers franchise for the American market. After Joe Kennedy became the American ambassador to Britain, we can catch a glimpse of how powerful the Illuminati are. The British royal family, at the request of Joseph Kennedy, put on their full royal regalia for the Kennedy family. When Kennedy arrived in Britain as American ambassador, he contacted the Astors and the Sassoons. Sir John Wheeler Bennett, founder and head of RIA's research division, is credited by those in the know as having written Kennedy's master thesis, which was later made into a book, Why Young Anne Slept. Perhaps one of the items that best shows the hidden power behind Kennedy is his daughter's marriage to William Cavendish and Joseph Kennedy's comments about it. Kathleen married the Duke of Devonshire. The Duke of Devonshire was a very prestigious position within the British nobility. Dukes are second only to the monarchy. Joseph Kennedy was often heard saying, "If Kathleen and her husband were living, I'd be the father of the Duchess of Devonshire, First Lady in waiting to the Queen, and the father-in-law of the head of all the Masons in the world."
Damn! That's a cold statement to say that. Damn, bro, that's some cold shit. So, man, you see how these people really doing their thing now here.
World. Koskoff, David E., Joseph P. Kennedy, A Life and Times. Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. Prentice Hall, Inc., page 378. Joseph Kennedy was in the British branch of the Knights of Malta, which is called the Order of St. John. Interestingly, Jackie Bouvier Kennedy Onassis' sister Lee married Prince Stanislaus Radziwill. The Radziwill family established the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, that's the Knights of Malta, in Poland in 1610. They also helped establish the order in the U.S. See,
that's where you get the King James Version. King James Version, 1611 version. Whoa! Whoa, that's why you got the order of St. John in Jerusalem. Woo! And they have established the order in the United States. And that's when King James brought the Bible to the United States and didn't want the slave to read it.
See the article on the Knights of Malta this issue. Another tie in between the Kennedys and the Knights of Malta concerns the hospice movement. The Kennedy Institute for the Study of Human Reproduction and Bioethics, located at the Jesuits' Georgetown University, is helping fund the Knights of Malta's hospice movement in America. In October 1978, the first annual meeting of the National Hospice Organization took place. Senator Edward Kennedy was one of the two keynote speakers. What is the hospice movement, which is being conducted by the Hospitallers, one of the names the Knights of Malta go by? It is a movement to allow old people the right to die. The Knights of Malta have an ancient history of running drugs and in administering mind-altering drugs in their hospitals instead of giving medicine. This ancient activity was carried forth into modern times when their St. Christopher's Hospital in London began giving patients Brompton mixture until they died. Brompton mixture consists of heroin, cocaine, alcohol, tranquilizers, and chloroform water.
Man, that's the same thing they doing today. Man, they give you liquid heroin at the goddamn hospital, cause that's what methazine is. Ain't nothing but heroin. All those painkillers ain't nothing but heroin, and you know what I'm saying, and tranquilizers. Then they got you on cocaine, alcohol, chloroform water, and this is all in the hospital that they control. Keep this in mind. Everybody know Freemasonry control all the kids' hospitals. It's probably why they call it St. Jude. Now you know why I call St. Jude. St. Jude? St. Jude. So let me go and look up, see who St. Jude is. You should already know this. And now you'll be like, that's why those goddamn Shriners and no Freemasonry always at those hospitals doing parades, riding them funny ass go-kart with the funny hats. All this shit.
Water. This mixture is given in the Knights of Malta hospitals to patients every 3 hours until they die. Euthanasia or mercy killing may seem like a merciful idea until a person finds out how the people at the top of the euthanasia movement view things. They view things similar to the Satanist Adolf Hitler. This view is that it is merciful to get rid of unwanted people. Although the death hospice movement seems benevolent at first, it is the conclusion of where the program will end up that is the kicker. Hospice Incorporated, which is linked to the elite, is also provided funding by the Kaiser Foundation. Besides ties to running drugs, the Kennedy clan has had their problems with drugs. Ted Kennedy's daughter Kara was on drugs and ended up in a halfway house. Bobby Kennedy's kids were busted for drugs. Joan Kennedy was having problems with alcoholism. David Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. both have been addicted to hard drugs in spite of repeated treatments in detoxification centers. David later overdosed on cocaine and died in 1984. Pat Kennedy Lawford's husband was dependent on drugs and alcohol. It is not well known that the Illuminati have long used drugs. Elite people such as the Rothschilds, Winston Churchill in London, and the royal family were using all cocaine, heroin, and opium, not to mention occult ceremonies too.
And they ain't lying. Because when I looked up the Rothschild movie, them people had medallions on their necklace. And that's where they kept the cocaine in. Don't y'all know how rappers had those big chains with those medallion pieces on it? Them used to be full of cocaine, bro. Them folks was on drugs. Them folks on drugs, bro. How? Out they mind to see spirits and demons? No wonder. So when you look at all these movies be coked up drug movies. A motherfucker full of cocaine, full of heroin, high out their mind and writing shit. This shit crazy, bruh. Listen to this.
Queen Victoria, thought by many to be such a straight-laced lady, and her guests regularly used large quantities of cocaine and heroin. The royal summer residence was Balmoral, and this was the site of frequent drug use. And one has to wonder what else. Short summary. This revisit to the Kennedys shows some of their ties to other elements of the Illuminati's vast scheme of things. Until people begin to recognize that the Kennedys wielded an occult power via their bloodline, they will not begin to appreciate why the Queen of England and her family would honor a request from an Irish commoner to have her family dress up in full regalia for the pleasure of this commoner's family. The friendship Winston Churchill had with Billy Graham, with Joe Kennedy, and his very close relationship with Onassis have recently been discussed. Churchill was an active Freemason. He also was a Druid. This is the picture of Churchill joining the Albion Lodge of the ANC, Order of Druids at Blenheim, August 15, 1908. Follow-up on the Kennedy family. There has been new attention focused on the Kennedys. JFK's widow died, and then his mother Rose has also died recently. Last year, I read a book which was very well researched. It is entitled A Question of Character, A Life of John F. Kennedy by Thomas C. Reeves. The book does away with all the propagandas, media hype, and lies, and tells the truth about the Kennedys. The book is well documented. The author spent a great deal of energy trying to find out the truth about JFK. What emerges is not public image that is so well known. JFK had only about a 119 IQ, did very poorly in
9.
school, and could barely spell. JFK's father had the wealth and connections to buy his son anything. Although Kennedy had a back problem which made him almost crippled, his father got him into the Navy during WW2. When he was let in, the examining doctors looked the other way at his back problem, which plagued him his entire life. Kennedy got a commission as a naval officer without having to go through the normal channels of training and being commissioned. As a naval officer, he did a poor job, and the great PT 109 story was far different than what the public has been led to believe. The fact that Kennedy let his boat be run over by a Jap destroyer was because he and his crew weren't paying attention, sleeping, hungover, etc. Kennedy realized he might be court-martialed for his negligence, but his father had the money to turn disaster into a story that made Kennedy into a hero. Some of the things you will learn from the book follow. In the chapter The Founding Family, we learn about PJ Kennedy, who was JFK's grandfather. He dropped out of grammar school, but by the age of 25, he somehow had ownership of a saloon and a liquor business. Later, he sold his liquor interests and went into banking. He also went into politics and via corruption was a successful politician. He won elections by hiring men to vote repeatedly for him. Joe Kennedy remembered two ward heelers proudly telling Joe Kennedy's father, who was on the election commission, "Pat, we voted 128 times today." Joe, PJ's son, married Rose Fitzgerald. The Fitzgeralds were a mighty Italian clan that had helped William the Conqueror become ruler of England. Honey Fitz was her father, and he had a reputation for graft and vote fraud, as well as a not-so-secret notorious affair with a girl named Toodles. Rose got her education in the Catholic Sacred Heart Convent, which she completed a month before her 20th birthday. Her father was removed from the House of Representatives after voting fraud was uncovered. Joe was acquainted with Roosevelt when FDR was only an ass. Secretary of the Navy. Joe became an insider with the stock market and knew how to manipulate stock prices to fleece the small fish that tried to play the stock market. Various gangsters reported that during Prohibition they had smuggled illegal liquor into the U.S. with Joe Kennedy. Joe worked with David Sarnoff and his Radio Corporation of America. Joe had an extremely varied sexual life. He had affairs with countless women, and his son JFK followed in his footsteps. Joe bought a 15-room, 9-bath home in Hyannisport, Massachusetts on Nantucket Sound. This became a favorite summer home of the Kennedy clan. He also bought a 6-bedroom Spanish-style house on the fashionable North Ocean Boulevard in Palm Beach, Florida, which became the clan's winter home. Rose is described as self-centered, stingy, prudish, and often spiteful. Her servants called her Madam, rather than being the model mother that is pictured to the American public by the Kennedys. She was often gone. JFK told his mother off at age 5, "Gee, you're a great mother to go away and leave your children alone." As an adult, JFK confided to a friend, "My mother was either at some Paris fashion house or else on her knees in some church. She was never there when we really needed her. My mother never really held me and hugged me. Never, never." Further, his father's lack of respect for his mother led JFK to say, "My mother is a nothing." Page 40. Imagine growing up without a mother to hug and kiss you. JFK's father tolerated lit-tie nonsense and no disobedience. Page 33. The life JFK lived at home was not a life of compassion, but one of rigid obedience. The children were stripped of many things ordinary children would have. They didn't even have their own rooms. Page 41. Most children have a room of their own sometime in which to place their belongings and knickknacks. The few times JFK as a boy invited friends over, they were frightened to death at how his father would fly into a rage and give the Kennedy boys a tongue lashing. The children were not allowed to express pain. For instance, when one of the Kennedys were hurt and came to his mother for sympathy, she ordered, "On your feet, now you know how to behave. Go out there and behave as you know you should." It is highly likely this strictness was related to some type of mind control, which even then was practiced by satanic families. Joe had his daughter given a prefrontal lobotomy and then banished to a nursing convent. From then on, his daughter Rosemary did not exist. One wonders what the full story was about Rosemary. Was she sexually abused, as is done to so many of the elite's daughters of satanic families? Felix Frankfurter, who played such a prominent role with Charles T. Russell, was a good friend of Joe's. JFK managed to hide from the public during his life the fact that he wore glasses and also to some degree his intense back pain, which hurt him intensely. On page 40, we learn that JFK was unable to ever have a self-revealing conversation. JFK had a total lack of ability to relate. Everything was very
10.
surface in his relations with people. He was very skilled at picking up women and getting them to bed, and he had many good friends. However, he didn't have the ability to love or relate to others. This is another clue that he may have had some type of SRA abuse. On page 40, Reeves writes, "At the root of it were months of loneliness and their parents' often selfish, insensitive behavior." But I wonder if it didn't go deeper. From what I know from informers, it goes deeper and involves SRA. JFK wasn't even told of his brother Teddy's birth until he came home from boarding school and discovered he had another brother. JFK was very unsuccessful at most everything he did. His father had so much influence and power that he could get his son out of almost any difficulty. A friend of JFK's recalled, "With Jack, nobody really admired what he did or respected what he did, but they liked his personality. When he flashed a smile, he could charm a bird off a tree." At the age of 17, Jack went to Harlem to a brothel. Later, he nicknamed his sexual organ JJ. Meanwhile, his father was the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and an informal advisor to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. I might add here that if you look closely, you will find the Illuminati kings are the advisors to the presidents.
They ain't lying. They sure ain't lying when they was like, man, if you look at the people that be advisor, them be the real Illuminati. Now you see why the Kennedy related to the Roosevelt, because it was a family tree, all married into the family, and they run the president and act like they don't even know each other. Like, Just look how the Bush and the Clinton family, like they don't even know each other, but these people been knowing each other family for centuries. Bro.
Presidents. I have mentioned some of these already, like in the article on the Bundy Illuminati family. Another example may be found in the book The Old Boys, The American Elite and The Origins of the CIA by Burton Hirsch. On page 40, one of the Old Boys, we learn that President Eisenhower's special assistant for Cold War strategy was Nelson Rockefeller. The most dangerous situation this country has ever been in was the threat of the Russian military, and who was the primary advisor to our President Eisenhower during his term as a U.S. president during the Cold War. Illuminati King Nelson Rockefeller. JFK went for 1 year to the London School of Economics according to the story given the public. Actually, he went there for 1 month, didn't do any academic work, and came back home. But it is significant that his father tried to send him to a school in which so many of the elite have gone to. JFK had help in writing and putting out a book entitled Why England Slept. Henry Luce, who headed Time Life and who was a good friend of Joe Kennedy, gave the book good publicity in Time magazine, and his father bought between 30,000 to 40,000 of the books and stored them in the attic and basement of his Hyannisport home in order to make Jack's JFK book a bestseller. When JFK went to California in 1940, one of the places he stayed at was with William Randolph Hearst, who was another Illuminati figure, at his coastal castle. Hearst would give help to Kennedy later on too. When Kennedy ran in politics, Hart's Boston American wouldn't even accept. Kennedy's opponents paid political advertisements. Joe Kennedy worked for the FBI after WW2. Page 59. JFK's favorite sister Kathleen married William Harrington.
Now look how many people that was in the office and president got World War II on their records. Look how many presidents and people that was in office that was in World War II. Before they were presidents, before they got elected in power. And check this out. You might as well look at the president election like this here. That's your whole family married to another power family, but this family more powerful than your family. So they giving you power to the media, the public. You the one gonna entertain the public while they pull the screens behind. Them the ones that got the money for the missiles, the war, the drugs. How you think Snook is not jumping on the boat, going to Columbus and getting that dope? No. You got the mob will bring it to you. Look, even the American gangster told you where they were getting their dope from. Guess what Frank Lucas would get his dope from? Through the military to where? What island? They was bringing it back on dead bodies in the military. No wonder why all those military used to have closed caskets. I noticed that. I'm like, damn, in the military, when they give the body back to the family, where the military, it's always going to be a closed casket, never open casket. It's always closed. Man, there might don't even be nobody in there. I'm just saying. Look.
Harrington, whose father was the 10th Duke of Devonshire, a pillar of the Church of England, called the Episcopalian Church in the U.S., and a high-ranking Freemason. After marrying him, she had an affair with aristocrat Peter Milton, Lord Fitzwilliam. After Joe Jr. died, JFK's father started grooming JFK to become president. After Jack was elected to the House of Representatives, his three best congressional friends were Richard Russell, Spessard Holland, and Robert A. Taft. Notice that two of these are from well-known Illuminati families, the Tafts and the Russells.
That's crazy. Cause them people is originally the 13 royal bloodline. So guess what? You gotta go to the royal blood. They call all the shots. If you make it or not, bruh. They call all the shots. If you want to get an education and want to be part of this shit, you gotta go to them. Then the big homies. Then the big homies.
Russells. By the way, the occult Tafts and occult Russell families have intermarried. Because there is so much disinformation out about the people who run this country, it must sometimes seem rather bizarre that people like me come along and say there is a satanic conspiracy of great magnitude. If Americans were as a whole critical thinkers and would challenge the propaganda that the controlled media gives them, then the false fronts and false public images of their leaders might not get written up so easily as history.
That's what I feel like when it comes to the Kanigga case, bruh. Cause I'm like, y'all, bruh, the thing that I'm finding out of Kanigga, man, ain't nobody gonna believe me. Man, these folk gonna make me look like a target. I even broke it down. I'm like, if the people that Trey ain't trying to expose, they got a big following. They following is bigger than mine. What the fuck? How? That I can expose them and they got a big ass following. They followers not finna believe that these people worship the devil, is Eastern Stars and Freemasons and they satanic. They is not finna believe this shit, bro. Look, you got people believe Miss Teresa an Eastern Star, but don't even believe her daughter death was satanic. That's crazy. Man, look. You mean to tell me these people, when they come to the Kanigga case, you don't even know what to think when they come to her. You be like, man, it was her friends that was in the room. You want to know the cold game about it? Because when you ask anybody, what happened to Kanigga, these people going to say the friends. In reality, they was family. That's crazy. It was family in the room. It was family in the room with her. And they told y'all these was friends and they didn't even know these people. Miss Teresa act like she didn't even know Irene, and Irene is related to Miss Teresa, bro. That's crazy. I told everybody, look, go look up Miss Teresa family tree while you got a chance. Cause I don't want to hear shit if you ain't did your research. When I tell you some shit, I don't want to hear no feed. That's why I ain't just really basically talking about it now. Cause I want to see it for myself. I'm like, look, watch how I'm finna beg these people to watch that footage. I said, watch how I'm finna beg. And I already knew ain't nobody finna watch that footage. Cause they rely on videos. They rely on video, a narrative. Put it like this here. I can name 10 YouTubers that's a part of the Illuminati and you don't even know it. And you love these people. Ain't got nothing to do with Kanigga K. I can tell y'all, look, y'all love these people because these people is some influence. But guess where their influence come from? Satanism, bro. And these people will tell you in so many words of who they really are, but you ain't even paying attention. That's what makes it a conspiracy theory about it. It's just like a con man could walk around the city, nobody don't know who he is. He got different names and all this, but he know his true identity. That what him get a thrill out of it. Yeah, these motherfuckers don't really know who the fuck I am. Look at this shit, bruh.
History.
There are not many critical thinkers in this nation. There are a great many intelligent people, but not a great many critical thinkers. A conspiracy of great magnitude has had this nation in its grip since the nation was founded, and the controlled press has managed to prevent the general population from finding this conspiracy out. The Kennedy family has played a role in that conspiracy. JFK gave his life to that conspiracy. The assassination of JFK is one of the best ways to introduce Americans to the conspiracy. Ralph Epperson, who gives slideshows about the NWO to groups, likes to use the Kennedy assassination as a method to get people to realize that there is a NWO conspiracy. Interestingly, Ralph Epperson had as a companion for a while, without knowing it, an active monarch slave who helped him give presentations. It is difficult for those exposing the NWO to get away from being infiltrated. One, the monarch mind. Controlled slaves are very difficult to detect, especially since most people don't even know that they
exist.
11. 1. The co-editor of this online book talked to Epperson, and he denies this and says the woman was an SRA victim and thought herself to be some government project, but not a monarch victim. Editor's note.
12.
Bloodlines of Illuminati. By
Fritz Springmeier, 1995.
The Leaf family. In writing about
Man, look. I'ma stop it right here. Look, I'ma stop it right here. Now y'all got an idea of what's up with the Kennedy family. But check these motherfuckers out. Boy, you think the Kennedy family something else. Boy, wait till you hear about these Chinese motherfuckers. They some cold motherfuckers. But look, if you go to the JFK, look. Ain't that cold-blooded? That's what got everybody conspiracy. Notice this. You would never see the news show you what they camera saw. You got to go to the Zapruder film. And it's funny that you got the Zapruder film, but not the actual news footage of the killing. That's the #1 red flag. That's the #1 red flag right there. Like, damn, what a news cover, because you supposed to caught this shit live. Like in today's term, if the president, just like the Charlie Kirk said, you see that shit live. You supposed to see that live on the news. Not on no Zapruder film that been compressed and altered and released it. You see what I'm saying? Years later. Look. And she married. The lady married to the Illuminati after he died. She married to the... That's crazy. Man, I'm finna get on up out of here again, cause when it comes to the Lee Alwell story, something like, damn, that's why they had the Lee Alwell. They made that man look like a patsy, all because of the Illuminati and they little secret that they got going on. But when it comes to explaining it up to the public, they tell me it was all because of the war. It was all because of this. It was all because of them goddamn mafias didn't like what he was doing. Nah, it was bigger than that. Cause you know what I believe? Sometimes I believe people will agree to be sacrificed. People, yeah, sacrifice me, cause man, I believe in this religion. Man, I believe. Man, don't check this out. Man, wait till I tell y'all about Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam. Did y'all know when it came in Nation of Islam, y'all remember that, what's that dude named Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad? Don't you know them folks was sacrificing and killing they members? They would, look, they had they people, bro. Look, not Muhammad, but the dude that founded Nation of Islam. What's his name? Farah Muhammad, something like that. Man, them folk did a ritual and the police found out about it. Man, look, guess what the police told him? They ain't even lock him up. They told him, leave town and don't never come back. What type of shit that is? Look, if you go to the Kennedys, look how many conspiracies you finna get out of Kennedy. Man, the History Channel ain't finna tell you. Watch this. I bet the History Channel ain't finna tell you about the Illuminati rituals. They ain't finna give you the real history, bro. You know, his dad was wealthy, you know what I'm saying? He was a skilled businessman, and he was in the movies film company, and you know, these people made success for the family and make them look like they were good people, bro. Then they got the wrong suspect claiming they killed him. Man, dude look like... Man, this shit crazy. Cause that mug shot they showing, I think I seen that mug shot before. To be honest with you. Cause when they released it, I'm like, wait a minute. I seen this mug shot from somewhere or the same shit. And I'm like, damn. He looked just like that other assassination, another assassination that went viral. And they said, nah, we got the wrong suspect. We got to let him go, and gave us a new favor. They look like one of them. So look, when I looked at the assassination, the Muslim, the 5% Nation of Islam, man, them folk got caught. It was a dude, I forgot his name, but I pull it up, y'all. This is an interesting case, cause they sacrificed that man in front of his kids, bruh. And he was in front of his kids telling them to take his life. And the kids were like, Daddy, don't do it. But he wanted his kids believe that he was doing the right thing to God, bro. And what make it, guess how they killed the man, bro? Hit the man on the head with a fucking axe. Not an axe, but a axle from a car part. They hit the man on the head with a car part, bro. The murder was so fucked up, like, damn, what the fuck? But look, but when you go to the JFK assassination, this all the Illuminati works. Look who owned the news press conference. It's no way now that you could look at CNN. Who owned it? The Illuminati. They just got black people on her to make you watch this shit. Oh yeah, they go black. She doing good for us. Yeah, okay, watch this shit. A, B, C. Who owned it? The fucking Illuminati. Hold on, wait a minute. CBS. Illuminati. You see they sign? The one all I sign. But guess what? They symbols and they sign so strong, you still watch them and take these people as news. So don't be surprised when another murder come up and they act like they don't even know what happened, and you sitting up there like, man, this is fucked up shit. Yeah, it's always gonna be fucked up. They just like goddamn it talking to a junkie. You know he smoking rocks and he telling you I don't smoke rocks no more. High as hell, licking his tongue, got cotton mouth like a motherfucker. And she like, I believe you. Shame on you. I'm out, gang. Trick, I love y'all, man. Y'all be cool. Y'all be safe.